This story is brought to you by the month of Lurve.
The month of Lurve.
I can keep you safe. I can keep you happy. By Phxntxm. Read by Goombasa. Chapter 1. Just a Normal Day. The wind in Rainbow Dash's mane, the feeling of the world rushing by her faster than any pony else she knew could go. This was the best feeling in the world, she figured.
This is the life, better than that dumb farm Applejack has to work at.
She smiled to herself as she closed her eyes and tried to perform a simple flip without looking. Her philosophy was to make things more challenging. Doing things the simple way just wasn't fun. Neither was crashing into a wall, she found out the hard way. She'd managed to botch another trick by not paying attention, but instead of crashing into Twilight Sparkle's library, she ended up in the side of Applejack's barn.
I swear you managed to mess up more tricks than you actually pull off, Rainbow.
Applejack smirked at her with a look she always used when Rainbow made a fool of herself, which, just like Applejack had stated, was quite a lot. She was the element of honesty for a reason. Rainbow just leered at her as she slid down the barn and landed upside down on her head, but the leer didn't faze Applejack.
What are you even doing practicing over here? Don't you normally practice flying in the field near Twilight's library?
Rainbow began to right herself and said,
Well, yeah, but the few times...
Few? Applejack continued to smile. Rainbow glared at her.
Fine, the many times that I mess up, I keep crashing into her tree, library, house thing. Apparently all her books keep getting knocked off the shelves, and her books are more important to her than me getting into the Wonderbolts.
She rolled her eyes.
Who even cares about books? They're so boring. All they do is try to teach you stuff that you could go out on your own and learn by doing anyway.
Maybe they'd teach you to stop your crash landing so much. Applejack's smile was starting to get on Rainbow's nerves.
Quit smiling! And why must you always be so sarcastic?
Now you're starting to sound like Rarity. You didn't even answer my question. Applejack looked at her inquisitively. Why are you practicing here?
Oh, yeah, well, since her books kept getting knocked off the shelves or whatever, she said I was causing such a mess all the time that I had to either find a new place to practice or help her clean. And there was no way I was going to clean if I didn't have to. So I looked for a new place, and the area around your farm is so open.
Just try not to break anything. I work hard to keep things looking spiff around here. I'd like to keep it that way. Now get along, I'm about to go eat. Rainbow started to flap her wings and fly away.
Fine. Now who's sounding like Rarity?
Applejack just shook her head, the smile back on her face as she walked back to her family's house, just having finished the day's work on the farm with Big Macintosh. They were going back to eat a nice supper that had already been prepared by Granny Smith. Applejack's smile grew as she thought about the food she was going to eat. Nothing is as good as Granny Smith's cooking after a hard day's work, right, Big Macintosh?
Yep.
Applejack chuckled and continued trotting alongside her brother to supper. She looked up and saw Rainbow Dash practicing more of her tricks. Applejack knew that mare was going to end up causing more trouble sooner or later. She always did. Rainbow mumbled to herself as she practiced more, a little sore from yet another crash landing.
Things would be so much easier if her place was made from a cloud. It wouldn't hurt so much to crash into. Just another reason why Pegasi are the best type of ponies.
She always knew how to turn something around to make herself look better. She crashed into something, their fault for not being a Pegasus. In her mind, it made complete sense. If it were any pony else, they would have taken the blame for themselves. After another hour of practicing, she headed over to Twilight Sparkle's place and pounded on the door.
Hey, Twi!
Twilight answered the door after a couple minutes and looked at her with a little irritation. Rainbow just blinked and looked at her blankly.
What?
Twilight rolled her eyes. Never mind, just come in. What do you need? Rainbow started to glance around the library, not finding anything interesting to look at. As it was a library, all there were books.
Nothing.
She stuck her tongue at some of the books, trying to show them just how lame they were. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Twilight watching her, and she pulled her tongue back in and put on a big smile. Well, no offense, but then why are you here? Twilight went back to her desk to study from her notes more, as she was before she was interrupted for apparently no reason.
I don't know. I'm bored and Applejack went to eat, Fluttershy's gone for the weekend, Rarity would dress me up or something like that, and Pinkie Pie is, well, Pinkie Pie. I have no idea what would happen if I went to see her. Whatever she would want to do would be a little much after my practice session for the Wonderbolts today, so I came here.
Well, I'm studying right now, Rainbow. If you want, you can grab a snack and wait for Applejack to come by later today.
Oh, cool. AJ's coming? What for?
Maybe Rainbow's boredom would go away with a mare that was almost as cool as she was. Just to hang out. Rainbow frowned and flopped down on the couch.
But that's just so boring. Why don't we go do something?
Why don't you just try it? Twilight rolled her eyes and continued to read her notes.
Fine. I'll go get something to eat.
It seemed like she was the only cool pony around. Every pony else was just so boring.
Well, that happens when you're the best and coolest pony ever, she thought to herself. You can't complain with this. I've got the looks, the athleticism, the talent, the confidence, and everything else.
She stopped and frowned, trying to figure out what she was about to do anyway. You were going to get a snack. Rainbow spun around, startled and sputtering.
What? How did you... But I didn't say that out loud, did I?
No, it's a new spell I was practicing today. Before you came barging in, I was practicing a spell that lets me read any pony's thoughts within 20 feet. And I must say, it's nice to know that while you aren't talking about yourself, you're still thinking about yourself, Rainbow. Twilight was smiling at her.
That seems like a personal privacy issue to me.
Well, I wasn't expecting any pony till later on. It should wear off within a few minutes. I had just finished and was writing down notes about the spell when you came pounding on the door. By the way, Rainbow, you should stop thinking about yourself so much. I dare say that might be the reason you crash so much. Because you're distracted. Rainbow blushed.
No, of course not.
Twilight chuckled. Your lips say no, but your brain is telling me otherwise. She beamed at her rainbow-colored friend.
Horse feathers.
Twilight chuckled again. Go get something to eat. Applejack will be here shortly. She sulked into the kitchen, grumbling to herself, but soon came to realize it didn't really matter if Twilight had read her thoughts earlier. All she was doing was thinking the truth. She looked at Twilight over her shoulder and saw her glance up from her work, sigh and shake her head before looking back down.
That's pretty creepy. This spell better wear off soon,
was now her only thought. Though, after getting a snack, she laid down on Twilight's couch and dozed off while waiting for Applejack to arrive. When the knock finally came and woke Rainbow up, she shouted,
Finally, some pony who's actually interesting.
Twilight just shook her head, being used to the self-centered attitude of her friend, and went to answer the door. Hey, Applejack. Howdy, Twi. And howdy to you too, Miss Rainbow Crash. And the smirk was back. Rainbow groaned.
Please don't start with that name again. I barely got rid of it after saving the Wonderbolts at the competition. And how come I keep getting that look? Both of you keep giving it to me.
The other mares just chuckled. It's all in good fun, Sugar Cube. We don't mean nothing by it. Rainbow Crash? Did she crash into your place now? Why don't you go somewhere where there's not some pony's place to crash into?
Because then no one could get to watch how awesome I am. I'm just giving ponies the chance to watch the best in action.
Is that why you keep crashing? Applejack and Twilight giggled.
Hardy har har. Whatever. So what are we gonna do? Pull pranks on some pony? Truth or dare?
Rainbow asked with a wicked grin. Twilight just rolled her eyes for about the billionth time that evening. I already told you we're just hanging out. Probably just sit around and talk. You said you would try it, so don't whine. Rainbow closed her mouth as she was just about to retort.
Fine.
And she laid down and just thought to herself,
this is gonna be the most boring night of my life.
To be continued.